Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets. Hey, Thomas, welcome. You and I have been missing each other, haven't we?
We have, man.
And now I'm catching you in your car.
Yeah, making it happen.
Yeah, making it happen. Well, thanks for joining. I know I've been excited. I actually didn't know that we had a surf school here in town probably until a year or so ago when you were on the local news talking about, they were doing a series on surfing in Half Moon Bay.
Yeah,
Right?
out at Mavericks. I forget what the name was but I think NBC did a little Bay Area series about Mavericks, Half Moon Bay, and then they threw our school in there, which was cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then Sophia recommended that I talk to you on this series where we are covering all the local businesses here in Half Moon Bay. And I got to be honest with you, Thomas, as a guy who's been in business a while, I'm taking my own advice. I always say you got to start in your local market. And I launched a podcast to the whole world and didn't cover Half Moon Bay. So taking my advice. But I'm excited to talk with you. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you and your brother got started in the surf school? Or maybe you should go back to 2017 when you were in school and started your clothing company. I don't know how it actually all came about.
For sure, yeah. So I graduated high school, Half Moon Bay High in 2016. Always had a passion for entrepreneurship, kind of just like to learn about business and all that stuff, but didn't specifically know what I wanted to do or whatever. So I went to Santa Barbara City College and joined the entrepreneurship program. And basically, that program is a class where by the end of the semester, you need to have like a product ready for market. Um, so then I kind of went through that class and went through all the steps. Um, and I decided to start a clothing brand. Um, Fast forward, think of Shark Tank, but college level. That's what they had. And we did basically like a pitch contest after going through that program. Ended up winning, and I believe it was $5,500 in seed money. So okay, now I have like a little money to work with, and that kind of started me down the road of working on the clothing brand.
So why did you pick a clothing brand? I know you're into surfing, but there's a ton of surfing clothing. So what really made you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always thinking back to 2017, I really it's not like I had some kind of like genius idea. Like you said, there's a ton of clothing brands out there. Um, for me, it was more I was just passionate and interested about branding and pairing that with just my lifestyle, and just business in general. So then that's why I started it, and it actually kind of led me down the road to starting the surf school as well, which we can get into. Um, but yeah, I'd say it was more just passion based. I was into it and just kind of wanted to I wouldn't really say I was an entrepreneur then. I was kind of just wanted to be. I hadn't really started any businesses, and that was like the first little thing that I could get my hands wet with.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So one of the things I was reading about you that I found was, can you talk a little bit about how hard it was to find a manufacturer in that process?
Yeah,
You went through school, you write a business plan, you do the mini Shark Tank pitch competition, you win $5,500, but now you got to build a product.
for sure. Yeah, that was a big learning curve, and almost even though I was technically in school at that time, I had other classes, math, science, whatever, all the basics. I wasn't really doing that. I was spending all my time learning about how to manufacture a product overseas and all the steps that go into that. So I basically just dove right in head first and did just either read articles online, YouTube, podcasts of other successful brands that manufactured overseas. Um, and as far as the process, I started the search through Alibaba, um, contacted about maybe 60 manufacturers, um, and then got samples from about 10. And then from those samples landed on the one manufacturer that, had the best price, the best quality, and more importantly, I had the best relationship with them. As far as, because, I'm just some kid in Santa Barbara trying to start a brand, and they're all the way in China. So they could have easily taken advantage of me. So luckily for the first order, it went pretty well.
So how did you get down? Because I know a lot of listeners are wondering, how would you build a clothing brand? But you contacted 60. Did part of them just not call you back? Some of them you didn't get a
Yeah,
good feel, like
for
they just
sure.
fell out?
Yeah, I won't say it was kind of a numbers game, and that was my approach. Some just didn't answer back. Some, and the most important part, and the biggest thing I learned and didn't know going into it is if you manufacture overseas, they have really high minimums. So to even get started in the realm, they're like, oh, we want 5,000 units. And starting out with different SKUs and colors and sizes, that just wasn't an option. Um, so I was actually lucky enough to find a manufacturer that was kind of the best fit for me and my business. So basically just a small brand starting out, and their minimum was 1,000 units across the board. So I could have, and that was 4 colors. So 250 units um, per product. And then broken in that 250, I had, small, medium, large, all the sizing. Um, so that was a big factor in this, was just finding a factory that wanted to work with me, because they would rather work with someone a little bigger.
So here's a question, something we skipped over, but I think is important. So you get 60 of these manufacturers, you get to 10, you finally pick one with the low minimum and probably a decent price. And as importantly, like you said, a decent relationship that you trusted them to send the
Hmm.
stuff when you send the money. But how did you actually design the clothing? Because that's not simple either.
Yeah, for sure. So I, even though now Venture is a full clothing brand, we have hats, hoodies, t-shirts, joggers, jackets, windbreakers. When I first started in 2017, I was focusing just on men's underwear. That was kind of my little niche. Um, so I basically studied the market. I taught myself about, it's called a tech pack. Basically, it's what you give the manufacturer, and it's also called like BOM, or bill of materials. So all the things as far as the materials. So like, what's the waistband made out of, versus the actual fabric, um, what and all the little measurements. So I taught myself enough to where I could do it myself, and made a couple rough prototypes. And then I also worked with a freelancer. I think I found him on Upwork, um, that kind of helped me fine tune it and kind of guide me a little bit to eventually like come up with the necessary things to successfully manufacture a product. And at the end of the day, you want a really high quality product, um, and in this case, underwear is something that was super comfortable. So that's kind of a little backstory on that.
Yeah, and I think it's a great story and great lesson for people that you weren't, well, one is you didn't go to school necessarily to be an entrepreneur. You knew you wanted to be one. You've got no background in clothing other than you've worn clothing, surfing clothing, and been involved with surfing brands, buying them forever. You had no design experience, but you figured that out and basically drew it and then got an expert on Upwork. By the way, how many people did it take, just out of curiosity? Because I think it's important. Everybody, a lot of people that come to me, they're like, "Oh, Brandon, I can't find someone." And I'm like, "You gotta reach out to like 50 people, right?" And
Yeah.
I mean, so how many people on Upwork? A lot of people.
What I would do, and they might have changed the platform where, no, I think you can still invite them, but so I would basically search what I would look for. So for example, tech pack designer, just type that in the search bar. And I would actually, instead of having where you put a job and the people reach out to you, I would go and look at all the profiles and look at the best ones, the reviews, and then invite them to my job. Um, Also, another little hack, because sometimes you get, if you put out a job post, you might get a lot of people that apply for it, but that aren't A, qualified, or B, they just apply to everything. So what I would do is in the little paragraph, where you write job description, I would put a little sentence in the middle of it, and I would say, if you read this far, write, for example, I'd always say surfs up in the beginning of your post. So that would give me the opportunity to look through all the people that applied and be like, if they didn't say surfs up, they're just automatically out, because I know they didn't actually read the post and they really don't, um, haven't put that much thought into, the job itself. So that was a little quick tip that helped me a lot.
That's really smart. Did you just come up with that?
I heard it from another podcast.
No, that's
What was
smart.
it? Yeah, it's definitely super helpful.
Yeah, because you get inundated with these. They must have bots or autoresponders, and you get all this
Yeah,
crap.
right.
It's total wasted time, right?
Exactly.
But you did find the person. Now, another question I have is, how many times did you have to go back and forth from the time you actually sent the tech back, which is very specific and has drawings and everything, and
hmm
and actually a template, to actually getting to the final? Was that 1, 2, 3, 5?
I would say it was 3 to 4 times, and in that time frame was probably about 6 months. Um, yeah, I'd say about three to four times in around 6 months, to
Where
where
you
where we contacted the factory, and then we're like, all right, everything's good, final sample's good, colors are good, sizing's good, the grading's all good. Like, you guys can go ahead and, pull the trigger and make this happen.
and did you think it was going to take this long, or what was your expectation?
No, I was super naive. And that's almost kind of, I mean, I still am, I'm still learning, but um, I just didn't know anything, which almost kind of helped me, because maybe if I knew more, like how hard this would be, I might have not done it. So I was so naive, and I was like, oh, like, it's easy to start a clothing brand. And then basically just dove head first. And then as I kind of started to learn, I was like, oh, it's super difficult. There's a lot to it. But then since I already kind of started, it was almost more work to like stop and start something new. So I kind of just kept going at it.
Now, you started with a different name, I think, and you've changed your name. How did
For
you,
sure.
can you talk about how you picked the name? I always ask this question because people spend months, and sometimes too long in my estimation, to just get going. But how did the name come, and then how did you change the name?
Yeah. So I went through three kind of names. The first, it was called Tahiti Wear. So they think Tahiti and then wear, like clothing. The second was Maracay Surf and or just Maracay. And then the third and final name, which it is now, is Venture. And then the logo, actually I'm wearing a hoodie. The acronym is VNTR. So that's what the logo is now. So the first two names, they were just bad names, honestly.
Why were
I
they bad names? Like, what made you what makes you say that?
Yeah, so Tahiti Wear, it didn't fit the brand message and voice I wanted to create for the brand. So Tahiti Wear, it's almost like, sounds a little tropical. It sounds like, I don't know, it just didn't, and two, it also just didn't feel right as far as my gut. Um, America Surf, that one, it just like, one, it's kind of like a mouthful. Two, when I did, so part of the program, we'd go out and interview people when I was at school. And one of the things I would, talk about the name and like the brand and the story and everything. And a lot of people would kind of be confused about America Surf and they kind of like, look at me funny. So that kind of gave me an indicator, like, maybe that's not the best name. Um, and then lastly, I guess the reason I chose venture and stuck with that is um, it's a word that has a meaning. So venture, like adventure, and that kind of ties into the brand as well as the I was able to trademark the name and the domain names were available. So that was another thing was like, okay, I have the domains, it's the social handles, and I'm still like the trademark still available. Um, and I like as far as our logo, I could make it kind of simple, clean, minimalistic, and modern. That was kind of the vibe I was going for as far as the branding and positioning. So those are like the main factors why I stuck with that.
Well, that's great. And you have a .com name, right? Was
Correct. Yeah.
that was, I don't know. What do you think about it? A lot of people, I used to trade domain names, but I still think, I think a lot of people Google things, but I think the .com name still, even today, just carries a lot of weight. What do you think?
Yeah. I would agree, and I've heard that as well. Um, I'm not for sure. I don't even know if it has like a gives you a better ranking as far as SEO goes on like that side of it. But I know that um, I mean the majority of domains are .com, so I think subconsciously we think that's like normal or right or like safer um, versus like a .co or like a dot whatever it may be .biz or whatever. So yeah, I think that if you can find something with a .com, I'd definitely recommend that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I still think that if you're a tech company like .io seems to have some juice. But I
Yeah,
agree. Some of these other ones are just out there.
yeah, for
So
sure.
that's an awesome story and congratulations because that's really cool that you actually got it off the ground. Now, I I want to talk about one thing, then I want to talk about surfing in Half Moon Bay. But the how about distribution? So you get all this done that seems to take probably a year or so, 6 months, and then
Yeah,
you get
I'd
this
say about a
stuff.
year.
And then you got to actually sell the stuff.
Uh-huh.
How'd that
Yeah,
go?
and that was actually a rude awakening because what I did wrong was I built the business too big. So I basically built it like I was a six-figure brand. I had a fulfillment center. I had an agency for the marketing. I had um I just had everything set up to where like I was like ready to go. And then when it came time to like sell everything and start ads and push the product and get the message out there, I didn't have product market fit. And as you probably know, it's like the most important part. Um, so then I almost kind of, and what I'm kind of now is I'm pulled back a little bit. Like I have all the inventory at my house right now. Um, I'll ship it out myself. I'll do handwritten notes, really try and make it special. So, because these days, like there's so many clothing brands. So how am I gonna stick out? And that's one little way where making it a little more personalized um, can help.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you not to feel bad because my brother and I started a clothing company, um, much like your story, although I had a ton of experience in fishing, but not in clothing design necessarily. I was on some pro staffs,
Hmm.
but that certainly doesn't qualify you to design clothing. It certainly qualifies you to give feedback on it when you fish 200 days a year. But um, my wife and I, just cleaned out leftover inventory from all the wrong stuff that we had and we just cleaned it out like 2 years ago, and it was sitting in there for like 5 years. So the way you make the mistake is you make the mistake. And I think clothing brands, especially, I learned the hard way, much like you did, but it is, you got to start from the back of your car. I
Yeah,
mean, you can't hire
for
all,
sure.
the sales won't happen rarely, right? Do they happen that way? So sounds like you're on your feet now. And obviously you live the life. So let's talk about surfing in Half Moon Bay is sort of I mean, people around the world know about surfing in Half Moon Bay mainly because of Mavericks, right?
For sure. Yeah,
And
that's like
you started
the main thing.
you started surfing there at 15, is that right?
Yeah, started surfing at 15. I went out. So I grew up, born and raised in Half Moon Bay. I started surfing when I was about 8. I did a surf camp at Surfers Beach with Dave Alexander. I'm not sure if he teaches anymore, but back in the day, he was kind of the guy. Um, 8, 9, 10, boogie boarded a little bit, didn't really surf. Around 10, started to pick it up. And then just growing up right by the beach, it's just easy access. So surfed a bunch. And then I remember, so I think it was myself, my brother, and a local guy named Tim West who took us out for the first time at Mavericks. Um, didn't even catch a wave because I was super scared, but it was cool to go out there. And two, one thing to note is growing up, I kind of was surrounded by older people and surfers who were better than me. So that really pushed me to surf with them. It wasn't Mavericks, but other spots that were just bigger and out of my comfort zone. So I think that kind of propelled me and helped me get out there at a younger age, because just growing up, I was always put in like situations where I wasn't comfortable in the ocean. And since I kind of wanted to like keep up with the older guys, I was like forced to like deal with that. And so I think that was a big one that kind of helped me like get out there early and start surfing Mavs.
So your first time out there is a big day, medium day? I mean,
Say like, I don't know, 15 foot, just kind of like normal day. Wasn't small, wasn't giant either. Just
but you
yeah,
paddled out
15, 20
there.
foot. Correct. Yeah, paddled out and then kind of just checked it out, watched it from the channel, I think. And then after that, I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. And then over the past, I mean, 15, 16, so like 15, I'm 23 now, so that's what, 8 years. Over the past 7, 8 years, because I took a couple of years off, just due to injuries, and I just slowly getting a little deeper and a little more comfortable and starting to learn the wave more. Um, and now shoots, I just love surfing Mavs. I love surfing big waves. It's definitely one of my passions for sure.
Well, it's definitely a big wave, but we have other surfing here in Half Moon Bay. I will readily admit that I actually just started surfing earlier this year. I'm a big biker and fisherman, and I was like, always wanted to surf. I'm originally from the East Coast, but lived here a while. I was
Uh-huh.
like, how can I not surf, right? Like, how can you live here? Even I figured Santa Cruz has some smaller waves. Now, I'm not that old, but I'm not in my early 20s. So my attitude, the type of guy I am, would want to surf Mavericks, really. And I sort of just decided, I don't know that it's been a final decision, but I was like, I'm in my 40s. I should probably just agree with myself that I'm going to be a longboarder and just surf some casual
Yeah.
stuff, which we'll see how that goes. We don't really have, other than Santa Cruz, too much casual surfing around here in Half Moon Bay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's Lindemar and Pacifica, which is kind of casual, but it's super crowded. And there's the Jetty in Half Moon Bay or Surfers Beach. And that's actually where we have our school. Um, those are like the two most, like, I guess, beginner spots in the area.
So let's talk about your school. It's a great segue. How did you go from clothing? How do you decide to start a surf school in Half Moon Bay?
For sure. So I was working for another surf school in the summers, kind of just working there, surfing personally and working on the clothing brand venture. And then it got to the point where I was basically running the business and doing everything for the other school, but still getting paid, the same as an employee. So that was one factor. Two, my brother and I were kind of just looking at the market, and we were like, we could do things different and better, and we want to do it like a little different way. And then three, having your own business, you're more flexible. So for example, like my brother's in Tahiti right now, and then I'm working, and then I went in September, and then he worked, and then I'm actually heading out to Mexico tomorrow to go to Puerto Escondido for a swell. So that kind of lifestyle was very like attractive to me too. Like, oh, if I can set up this school and work a bunch in the summer when the waves are flat, and then in the wintertime when the waves get good, I can surf more and then work on the clothing brand. So those are the three main things that kind of like got us to start the business.
So you have your school right at the jetty for the most part. Is that really your central location?
Yeah, for sure. We don't have as far as a physical location, like a storefront, but that's where we teach. Like the city allows 4 schools at that beach, and we're one of those schools, along with actually Tim West, who took us out at Mavericks. He has a school as well, and some other guys.
And you really cater towards beginners and people just
Yeah,
wanting to get into it?
yeah, that's kind of our bread and butter. Like um, we get a lot of tourists just in the summer coming through Half Moon Bay. We get who just want to try it once, and that's it. We get a lot of people who maybe have lived in the Bay Area their whole life, and they're like, how come I haven't surfed? I want to start surfing. Kind of like, yeah, similar to your situation. um then every now and then we get some people who want to get a little, like, they know how to stand up and do the basics, but they want some more technique, instruction. So a little bit about that, but for the most part, just all beginners.
Well, you seem really stinking busy because you're really hard. You're like
Yeah, super
around and
busy.
working. I see all the pictures on Instagram all the time. Is Instagram your main? Like, is that how I mean, I see you there all the time. Is that really how you advertise, so to speak?
Um, as far as the surf school, as far as the clothing
Yeah,
brand, or just everything.
the surf school. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, so we've been in business since September 2018, so a little over 2 years. When we first started, yes, 100%, because no one knew about us. Now we get a lot from word of mouth and referral, just because we've kind of been around. And then the cool thing about surfing, and why honestly it's a lot easier business than the clothing brand, is it's such a memorable, talkable experience. So, as long as we make sure that the customer gets an awesome experience and has a great time in the ocean and learns a little bit, they're either going to post on social media or tell their friends, which is kind of gives this little like viral effect of, one person takes a lesson and tells 2 people, and then so on and so forth. So we've noticed, like, this year specifically, a lot more word of mouth, um, has are the way people are finding us.
Well, that's cool. And I imagine it feeds your clothing brand because they become
Yeah,
customers.
a little bit, more less than you think, I would say. I kind of know. I kind of want. They're almost two different things, two different brands, two different the customers in a different mindset when they're taking a lesson. Two, I don't want to, like, be super salesy and just push a bunch of product. Um, But I'd say, if anything, I meet a lot of cool people through teaching. Um, for example, I met some dude who works at an advertising agency and run ads for, like, some of the big brands like Kylie Cosmetics and some other huge brands, direct to consumer brands. So, I almost get more, not as far as sales, but information about, how to grow a clothing brand through the surf school.
Well, that's really cool. So you and your brother basically are teamed up and you hit it hard during the summer. You can still swap off and on because one of you can be on. I still imagine it's a lot. Do you have other people, other surfer
Yeah,
instructors?
sometimes. In the summer, for sure. So we have a kids camp, and it was um, even more popular this year just with Corona, because all the parents were kind of tired of their kids, so they wanted to give them to us. So Yeah, we have some of the college students that help out, some of the lifeguards that also surf as well. Um, and then we have a few other instructors that kind of periodically help on the weekends because we do big group classes. Um, but for the most part, like me and my brother are the main guys teaching.
Yeah, I ride my bike by. It looked like you have quite a lot of kids.
Yeah, in the summer it was a little different with Corona. As far as like I think the San Mateo County rule was groups of 12. So we did two groups of 12, so 24 kids per week. And we did 10 weeks of that this summer. And then, because it was funny, in the beginning of summer, we're like, oh, we're just going to do lessons. We'll probably do 4 weeks of camp. And then we did lessons too, and um, 10 weeks of camp with like, 20 to 30 kids per week.
Aren't they worn out? Can't you wear those kids out surfing all day?
By the Thursday, Friday, yeah, for
Well, who's
sure.
worn out? You and your brother or them? That's the real question.
We're probably more worn out because we'll like yeah we work a lot. We'll teach from like for example this Sunday I worked from 9 till 5:30 just in the ocean all day. And I use like in the summer we do that 7 days a week. Um, this time of like Mondays are kind of my weekend so to speak, and that's why I'm here right now because I got a little window. Um, our schedules are a little backward just with because people want to surf on the weekends and then during the week they got work, so that's when we're a little more free.
I got you. And so now that winter's kicking up, you and your brother will do lessons, but you're still looking at swells around the
For
world to
sure,
head
for
out.
sure, and and we kind of pump the brakes a little bit. One, I mean, it just gets big and you can't teach, like you can't take a beginner out when it's like 6 foot. I mean, you can, but they might not have the best experience. Um, so yeah, and it gets kind of cold and the weather is a little shifty. And two, sometimes all the sand gets pulled away at Surfers Beach. There's not much beach left because when the big swells come, it eats up all the beach just with erosion. Um, but specifically this year, once it's a La Nina, which is um, they kind of make a prediction of how the waves will be, and it's supposedly supposed to be a little smaller. Um, as well as, I mean, the weather's been so nice lately. It's been a killer fall. It's been super sunny, and the waves have been relatively pretty small. So that's kind of kept us going this long into the season.
So can you imagine living anywhere else but Half Moon Bay? I mean, is Half Moon Bay the best place in the world, really?
Yeah, I mean, shoots. I have to pinch myself for growing up right by the beach. Sometimes if I don't travel for a while, I'll just kind of get, in my rut, you're working and you don't really realize it until you travel elsewhere and really see like, wow, I'm super blessed and grateful to be able to live here and have this as my work and just being involved in the surf community here. Um, definitely super thankful for that.
So what is the best way, Thomas, for people to find you? Is it on your website, or how would someone who wanted to check out your surf school and or your clothing brand?
Yeah, for sure. So for the surf school, Tommy Tsunami Surf School.com. That's the best place to find for lessons. For the clothing brand, it's VNTR underwear.com. And then I guess personally, you can just find me on Instagram, Thomas underscore Lundgard. That's spelled Lundgard. Those are the best three spots.
Cool. Now, real quick, where did Tommy Tsunami come from?
Yeah, so I mean, my name's Thomas. A lot of people call me Tommy, and then or Tom or whatever. But we were thinking of business names, and this is actually kind of a cool little side note on just branding and business. So when we first started the business, we were coming up with a name, trying to think of a name, and we had two options. We could either choose hmbsurflessons.com, which I think in the short term would have been a little better as far as SEO, or we could have, and then we're like, oh, we could do Tommy Tsunami Surf School, and I guess where the name comes from is my name's Thomas, or some people call me Tommy, and my brother and I we surf big waves. And then even though it's named after myself, Me and my brother were both business partners. And it's kind of a catchy name. So we decided to go with like the more branded, catchy name, and we're super stoked we did because it's got a good ring to it. It's very memorable, and sometimes people laugh at. They sometimes reminds them of Johnny Tsunami the movie. So that was we were stoked we ended up doing that instead of like half a day surf lessons.
Well, I got to admit, I think it's cool. And I saw you put out I think you had towels. I think I missed out on something, but you sell that. I think people would just buy that as a tour, like just because it's
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. Yeah, and that's actually we're almost at the stage right now where we've grown the business from, so I guess to give it some context, in 2018, we started with, and my brother gave me 8 grand because I didn't have any money because I was putting in the venture, the clothing brand. So he loaned me 8 grand. So he kind of had the money side of it, and I had some of the knowledge from the clothing brand and how to build a site and market everything. So we started with that, and we've kind of grown the business to where we're at a point. So we're like, oh, like, should we keep it as it is and just have it like kind of a machine and just have it as that, or do we want to, do we kind of want to go the franchise route, or do we want to have it like a physical storefront? And we're kind of torn with the ideas. And one thing that we keep coming back to is like, look, the name is super good and it's catchy, and there's a cool little brand around it. So I think we're gonna start putting out some more clothing and like beach gear items. I know a lot of our customers want some hats, towels, umbrellas, things like that. So we're actually, this off season, we're gonna kind of sit down and figure that all out and really, you know, see where we could take it. Because shoot, it'd be cool to, even though we're a surf school, build the Tommy Tsunami brand even bigger, just because it's a killer name and it's got cool branding and all that.
Well, that's cool. Congratulations. Sounds like you've come a long way and actually turned it into a business that can support you and your brother and your
Yeah,
lifestyles, which is pretty
for
cool.
sure. For sure. Yeah. At the end of the day, business has to make money. And that was kind of a true test to see, like, okay, can I actually create a business that can support me? Um, so yeah, so far it's going well.
So I want to end with you have a great story. And you started from nothing and now you got a business supporting you and your brother and you're really living the life, right? Like that's the dream. A lot of surfers just go surfing and then just try to figure out how to do like make some
Uh-huh.
odd money. You're building a real business, which
Yeah.
maybe I don't know goes against the grain. This whole surf culture, like what do they call the early? They call
Yeah.
like what do they call new people?
Kooks.
Kooks. Yeah, I'm like I'm like so where how does this work, Thomas? Like I'm a kook as soon as I hit the water with the surfboard, but then instantly they're a kook in my world in business when they get off this thing. So shouldn't we all just
Yeah.
be humans?
Yeah. I would say there's a fine line. It's not, if you, in my opinion, because I teach a lot of beginners. So I'm like, I can't be calling people kooks. Like, obviously, that's not good for business. I would say it's more of the attitude and demeanor that you come with when you first come to the water. So, for example, if you come with a very humble, respectful attitude and demeanor when you're first coming in the lineup, like you still technically are, I guess, a kook in quotes, but like you said, everyone's got to start somewhere. And if they come into your space, like they're the kook. On the other hand, if you have someone that's, you know, just a huge ego and not disrespectful and not aware of like the culture, then like you're a kook, and like
Or they're just
someone like,
idiots, right?
yeah, and
I mean,
that,
that's just
for
the way it
sure.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
I was paddling the lineup out there in Santa Cruz, and I got this kid. I don't even know. I'll be honest, Thomas. If that kid was 10 years old, I'd be surprised. That kid could surf circles around me, literally. Like, how can you not be humble, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It just depends on the person. Like, everyone's different. Some people are nicer than others, but at the end of the day, like the ocean is for people to have fun and, you know, like surfing's fun. People are going to go surf. So I think it's a little backwards to where these surfers that you know, are super localized. And you, don't get me wrong, you do want localism and, you know,
Of course.
respect, checks and balances. But that being said, like that person who is like, you know, super aggro and angry, like you started too eventually when you were young. Like it's, you know, you just like didn't pop on a surfboard and you're like super good. Um, so yeah, I would say it's less about skill level and more about kind of like just etiquette, basically.
I think that's fair. I think that's true in all walks of life. And I'll be
For
honest,
sure.
everybody um, has been really nice in my experience out there.
Yeah,
Eh,
for
Um,
sure.
you know, a few people have been, well, I just warn them. I'm like, hey man, I'm new. Like I got, you know, you can't, if you're just honest, like, hey, I'm new.
Yeah,
I could wreck. You probably just want to watch out. Right. Like,
yeah. No,
uh,
that's the way to do it. That's like that's how you're gonna get respect in the lineup for sure.
yeah, well, you won't see me in the lineup at Mavericks this year, but hopefully I'll be looking in the cam at you and some other guys out there. Can you leave fellow entrepreneurs, surfer or no surfer, with 3 HPTs, high percentage tips that you would give them when they are setting out to start and build a business?
For sure. Yeah, I would say based off my experience is number one, what are you good at? And I know that's a very broad thing to say, but more specifically, um, what like comes naturally. So for example, when I was first kind of figuring it out, and I still am, but in the very early days, um, I just kind of like didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I liked slash was good at and kind of started to go down that path. So I was interested in branding and how brands came about. I was interested in marketing and business, so I started to go down that. Um, Number two, and this kind of ties into one is match a business with a passion. So it's not like it's an uphill battle the whole way. I mean, starting a business is kind of can be like an uphill battle, but when things do suck, if you're passionate about it, it will help and make it a little easier to keep pushing. Um, and the third and final and most important for me is lifestyle. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. What business, and this is honestly why I started a business in the first place, is to have a certain lifestyle. Um, and that lifestyle, you know, flexible, not having a 9 to 5, not having a routine, being able to work on my own time. Um, so I would say those are the top three things to help other entrepreneurs out there.
I think those are great tips. Thanks so much, Thomas.
Yeah,
I probably
thank
need to
you, man.
take a lesson with you out there and
Yeah, I'd love to
figure out
make
what
it
I'm
happen.
doing. Well, where are you headed tomorrow?
Off to Puerto Escondido in Mexico.
And there's some big waves.
Yeah, looks like a fun swell. It's not huge, but I mean, it's gonna be big here in Half Moon Bay, but it just looks kind of shitty. It's like windy and big, and so I can't teach because it's too big, and the surf's not gonna be that good. So I think I'm gonna go down to Mexico, get some warm water, and there'll be some good waves there for sure.
Right on. Well, travel safe. Thanks again. Congratulations on your success. And we'll be looking from great things from Tommy Tsunami Surf School.
Right on, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care.